What's up, hybrids? Welcome back to another episode of the Fandom Hybrid Podcast. This is Hanako, and I'm here with Anthony, and we are discussing the season 2 penultimate episode already of The Last of Us. And Anthony said something before we started this recording. He said I wasn't going to like him very much. So, what is the problem? Give it to me now. Let me take it in.
This episode was kind of meh for me. Yeah,
Oh,
there,
I'm kicking you off this recording right now. I'm
there
kicking you off.
there's some things that I don't like what they're doing with Joel's character. Like he was like this hard ass, like badass, and now he's like this soft, sappy, mushy person.
Oh my God.
And this is like, ugh.
Oh,
And then we throw the trope in, he had an abusive dad. That actually, I will say that this introductory, this cold open,
mm-hmm.
is probably the best thing this season. But then the rest of the episode is kind of like, ugh.
Oh my God. I'm about to throw you away because this was actually one of my, if not my favorite episode this season.
Only because it's got Joel in it.
Well, I mean, that too, but it also, I feel like it gives a little bit, one, it does give a little more insight into Joel and Ellie's relationship and how good it
Yes.
was and then how it kind of deteriorated. Um, there were just a lot of things that they played with in this episode that really really touched me. And yes, they did show kind of the Joel that was, he's getting used to being a father again. He's getting used to being vulnerable again. But you got to remember, even though it was a very, very brief moment, we saw that type of Joel at the very beginning of the whole show when
Yeah.
Sarah was alive.
Mm-hmm.
So
We did.
the whole heart, you know, hard-hearted persona, the tough guy, whatever. This was a guy who literally had been keeping people at arm's length. This was a person who had not allowed himself to love, not allowed himself to feel. And so that's what you saw. Now, I think here, when we see it with him and Ellie, I think it kind of fits because even though, there's still clickers around, there's still cordyceps around, there's still danger, they're a little bit more safe in the town. So I think he kind of just felt like he could relax a little bit and just try to nurture this relationship that he never expected to have. And I just think we saw that, but I thought it was beautiful.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I thought it was beautiful. But anyway, so okay, we'll talk about your sucky feelings. Like, no, I'm just joking. We'll talk about it and we'll see if we can come to like a impasse or a middle ground. But let's talk about this cold open because hi Jack. I swear, ever since I've seen him in Hawkeye, I'm seeing Tony Dalton everywhere now. I'm just like,
Yeah.
hi, you're just all over the place. Because I didn't know
Yeah.
his character was in Daredevil, and then he showed up in Born Again. And then
Mm-hmm.
I saw him in something else recently that I don't remember. And I was just like, I'm seeing your face everywhere. But he plays Joel and Tommy's father in this one. And I like the way that we got to see a little bit of them when they're young. Because in this instance, you see Joel, even back then, was a protector.
Yeah.
Tommy,
He has what is a savior complex?
yes, and it started very
Yes.
young, but
Yeah.
you understand it now.
Mm-hmm.
You kind of understand it now because he was taking care of his brother because their father was. And
Abusive.
so this is the thing that kind of got me about that part because I feel like with the way the conversation went, and maybe this is just a generational thing, because when Joel is talking to Tommy and Tommy is like, he's gonna hit me, I'm gonna get the belt. Now, me being a Gen X kid who grew up in the 80s in a relatively black household. Let me say my mother is Japanese. So anyway, but I did not take that, especially considering that was 1983. I didn't necessarily take that as he was going to be beaten. Some kids don't like to get spanked, and spanking for me as a child, that was a normal thing. If you misbehave, you got spanked. You didn't get beat. So I was kind of listening to the wordplay in that particular scene, and then of course when you have the confrontation, or not even confrontation, conversation between Joel and his father, and Joel says, "You're not going to hit him," and his father is kind of like, he has this look of, I don't know if it's resignation, but he, when he goes to get the beers and he comes back down to the table, I'm thinking if this was a person who was really like abusive in the way that we know abusive, this is a man who would have hit the wall at that. He probably would have blown his top, but he's not. He sits down, opens the beers, and he kind of starts telling Joel a story about a time when he stole something, because that's how this whole thing started. Tommy apparently went to go buy some weed from somebody, got into a fight. Joel came by, kicked the guy's ass, and here we are. But when he was talking about his punishment or what happened with his dad, he said, "My dad made me take it back. He made me apologize. And then we drove home." And so you're thinking this is just a normal car ride home. And he says when he got ready to get out of the car, his father punched him in the face so hard that he broke his jaw and caused him to bleed. Now that is definitely abusive. Okay. Again, Gen X mind. That's definitely abusive.
Yeah, and he said, "Yeah, my mouth was wired shut for two
For
weeks,
two
and
months.
everybody knew what
And
I
it
had."
was humiliating. Yes,
Yeah,
that sort of thing is. But then he starts talking about, he was like, "Yeah, I hit you and Tommy." He was like, "But it's nothing." And I mean, it's almost like he was offended that they would compare it to what his father used to do, because he was like, I never hit you that like that. And I was just, it was,
yeah, but he also said, "I know sometimes I may have went too
I
far."
may have gone too far. That's when I started
That's
kind of
that's
shifting.
that's where he knows
Yeah,
to use them.
yeah,
He may
yeah.
not have done it as much or as often or as bad as his father did to him,
Mm-hmm.
and he says, and hopefully one day when you have one, you will do better than me.
Yeah.
And I think that was really the reason why I really like that was it was really making a statement on generational trauma.
Mm-hmm. 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 Because
And his father was trying to do better, but he was still sometimes go too far.
right, right. And I would, that's what I was gonna say, because it's like, again, this is something that I have a conversation with my own kids at this point. My kids are in their 20s. So we do talk a lot about things that happened when I was a child and the way things are now, or the way things were when they were a child, because I am one of those parents. I believed in spankings, and we did that. Now, if I was raising younger children, I don't think I would do that, just because you think about you think about the kind of effect that has on a child, and just all of the different psychological things, and you see a lot of things that children are dealing with now that we didn't deal with, and it's just, it makes you look at certain things a little bit differently. But there are still some things that I will look at with my Gen X mind and be like, okay, but that really wasn't that bad. You know what I'm saying? And I think I kind of started looking at that scene that way, because I was like, okay, yes, he is admitting, which is not typical of abusers. Abusers don't generally admit when they are wrong. They don't admit that they're doing something that's harmful and that sort of thing. So that's the thing I was paying attention to with him. Like, he felt bad about what he did. That, no, that doesn't make it right, but he did acknowledge, okay, yeah, maybe sometimes I go a little too far, but it's nowhere near as bad as he was. And hopefully by the time you have children, you won't be as bad as I am. It's like, some people, when they talk about breaking generational curses, a lot of people want this to be like a thing, like, oh, that's wrong, just stop doing it. And sometimes it's not that easy. Sometimes there are things that are ingrained in us that we
Mhm.
have to unlearn, and sometimes we can unlearn it fairly quickly. Sometimes it takes years to unlearn. So I like that they put that in the show, because they did show that, okay, yeah, it's a thing, it's a generational thing that he's trying to break. And then of course you see Joel trying to do that as well. He tried to do it with his own daughter, and of course what happened. So now he feels like he has a second chance and he's trying to do it again with this child that he rescued. And I did love seeing that, you
Mm.
know. Um,
There was a show that I think it was on Apple on TV, the TV app. Um, I can't remember what it was called, but it was about this boy who was going to be. It was a show set in Great Britain, and it was about this boy who had killed a girl with his classmate, and they were trying to determine whether or not he was um, sane enough to stand trial
mm-hmm,
because of how young he was. In there, his father talked about being abused himself by his father. And he tried to do the opposite. He tried to be different than
mm-hmm.
his father was towards his son. But then he started thinking maybe he was too soft
Yeah,
because his son ended up
doing
being
what
a
he did.
murderer.
Yeah.
You know,
So it's
and
it's kind of hard to find that balance when you're unlearning such harmful behavior.
mm-hmm,
But I do like that they showed that this was somebody that he tried, and it's obvious that I don't know, Joel or Tommy didn't have resentment towards their father, because if you notice, when his father got ready to leave and he touched his shoulder, his father was wearing the watch that Joel wears.
mm-hmm.
And I was like, oh, okay. And maybe that was just kind of an acknowledgement of, okay, yeah, my dad wasn't the best, but he tried. He tried his best.
Yeah, I didn't actually like that because I think it took away from the significance of Sarah giving him the watch because we don't we don't really understand or we really don't get Tommy and Joel's feelings about their father.
Mm-hmm.
Like we have this cold open, but we don't know if they ever resolved it, if they ever talked about it. It did the why did the watch have significance to him?
Mm-hmm.
And so what we're left with is seeing the watch we have to fill in for ourselves,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Okay.
And I don't necessarily like that for this.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I would have preferred maybe more of that conversation or maybe a next day conversation about it and him acknowledging that, yeah, you know what, I am doing wrong and yeah, I was wrong. You know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah.
make
Yeah.
it mean something because up until this point, the watch meant for us, it was the last thing of his that Sarah had given him.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's the significance to him.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what you've done is you've shifted the significance away and not make her contribution as important or as emotional. Does that make
You
sense?
know,
And
tell
I'm
me
just saying,
about it.
just for me,
Yeah. Because I
that
was gonna
it
say,
kind of takes away from it a little bit because it's not like it was a watch that he bought and he was like, "Yeah, I really like this watch," and then he broke it, and then she went and got it fixed. That's really significant for him.
yeah, but for me, I think the significance is the fact that it was his father's watch, and when the watch broke, instead of throwing it away, he kept it. And she understood how much that watch meant to him, which is why she took it and went and had it fixed so that he could have it with him again. So I
Right,
think,
but we don't know that. We don't know that. We don't know why is it significant to him. Just because he belongs to his father doesn't make it that significant.
I have a
But
feel.
it would have. I would need more
Uh-huh.
for it to
Yeah.
mean anything for me. But otherwise, it takes away from it.
I kind of feel like with the way that they ended that particular scene, especially focused on the watch, I feel like we that's not the last we'll see of that. I have a
Mhm.
feeling we may see
Okay.
either a continuation of that conversation, or we'll see another flashback, maybe having to do with Tommy, because obviously Tommy is being brought back into the story in Seattle, even though we haven't seen him yet. But maybe that will they will find a way to connect that and show us why it's so important.
Mm.
But
We
that's just
we
the way I got it.
I don't think we're gonna see Tommy until next season when
I
we
kind
have
of feel
Abby's
that.
story.
I kind of feel that way too. Because even after watching the promo for the next episode, which is the season finale, I don't think Tommy is in it. So I was like, oh, y'all gonna make us wait until the third season.
Because he's gonna be Yeah, he's gonna be Abby's big bad.
Mm,
That's yeah.
okay. I like that. Well, yeah, okay, we'll see. Because I still have questions about the way that plays out, but we'll talk about that later on. Let's move
Okay.
forward with the episode. So this episode is basically all flashbacks, all about significant days for Ellie, her birthday. So we see everything from um her 15th birthday, which is the first birthday she has after Salt Lake City, all the way up until the most recent, her 19th birthday, and just kind of with those birthdays, we see the relationship kind of deteriorating. Um, but the first thing I want to say is Joel is back in the intro, the little cordyceps
Yeah, the little
Joel. I
cordyceps
was
Joel.
like, yay. But then immediately I started tearing up too. I was like, okay, so this means y'all about to like just kind of put my heart through the ringer. Okay, I'll take it if we have him. But yeah, I was glad to see that. Um, so the first flashback that we see is Ellie's 15th birthday. And this is kind of funny because this takes place 2 months after Salt Lake City when they come back to Jackson and they're starting to get settled in. And the first thing you see is Joel kind of establishing a bit of a I don't necessarily want to say relationship with Seth, but it's kind of like an agreement. Like Seth is looking at him like, oh, you're the new guy. And Joel is like, I've been here 2 months. But, they go into this conversation where they're trading and they're bartering for stuff. And what we find out is that Seth used to be a cop. And he reveals this because Joel comes in with a bag of Legos. And Seth is like, oh, my grandkids will love this. Well, where did you find it? And Joel is like, well, I found it at the houses, blah, blah. And Seth was like, I searched those houses. And what did Joel say? He said, well, I used to be a smuggler and
Smuggler.
you're this. And Seth gets really offended by that because, he's tending bar and Joel is obviously kind of implying that, oh, you're just a bartender. He was like, no, I
Mm-hmm.
used to be a cop. And then Joel looks up at him and his face kind of changed. And I was like, oh, yeah, because his dad used to be a
His
cop.
dad was a cop. Yep.
Dad used to be a cop. So they have a conversation. It's a really weird conversation. And then you find out they're talking about cakes because Ellie's birthday is coming up. So Joel, he asked for the cake and then he also asked for something else. And when he comes home, he has a piece of bone. Now I'm looking like, what are you about to do with this bone? And then you go into his room and you see all of his wood making tools. And I kind of forgot about that for a
Mm-hmm.
minute that Joel
He's a
used to
carpenter.
carve. He used to carve stuff. Not just wood to build buildings, but he also made things. And I think we saw a little bit of that when Ellie went through his room after his death.
Mm-hmm.
And so he takes this bone and he like really saws it down to this little bitty piece. And basically what he's doing is he's rebuilding a guitar for Ellie
Mm-hmm.
because he's told her that he would teach her how to play. And then when he gets ready to, try to test it out, you hear Tommy come in the house with what sounds like a very drunk Ellie, but she's not drunk. She's on pain medication
Mm-hmm.
because she tried to burn her arm on purpose, like we learned she did when she told Dina.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so funny because like I said, she seems like she's drunk. But she's on painkillers. And Joel and Tommy are having this conversation about why she would have done it and who was watching her. And then they realize that she did it on purpose. And Joel is trying to figure out, like, what the fuck, Ellie? Why are you doing? And she was like, I'm so sorry. I just really wanted to wear short sleeves again. And it sounded funny when she said it to Dina, what was last episode or 2 episodes ago, but then you realize that's really why she burned the pot because she was so used to wearing long sleeves because she was hiding her bite mark and she just wanted to wear short sleeves again. It sounds kind of stupid when you say it like that, but then if you think about the fact that this is a 14-year-old girl about to turn 15, stuff like that is important to her, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And then we
One
oh
small detail about the bone.
mhm.
Um, the bone he put in the guitar is actually because because of her the bite and the cordyceps bumps, he wanted to make sure her arm didn't chafe. So that's why he didn't use wood, he used bone.
Oh, okay.
So he was being conscientious.
Okay. Yeah, a little bit more of that softening that you don't like, huh, Anthony?
Right.
Whatever. Whatever. But I think I like this scene and then the scene that follows afterwards because and I think this is one of the reasons why I really, really like the episode as well. Because from the time that we meet Ellie, Ellie is already she's already kind of hardened. She's already a smart ass. She's already like she's always on the defensive
Mm-hmm.
and she doesn't allow anybody to get close to her until Joel. And then what you kind of see in this episode, especially the first couple of birthdays, you really get to see her be a child in a way that I don't think the character has ever had a chance to do.
Right.
Because when they're in Boston, they grow up in Fedra. Fedra teaches them how to be soldiers because, of course, you've got these monsters running around who have no sense of sense. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
to put it lightly, they're mindless killing machines. They're all they're
Mm-hmm.
doing is looking to affect and create more cordyceps. So I don't think she's ever really had a childhood. So for her to get a present like a guitar, for her to get a cake, you saw she got the cake, and when he turned around to get the knife, turned back around, she had already. I mean, it was like a what do we call a smash cake for a 1 year old? We
Yeah.
always let the 1 year old smash the cake, and that's exactly what she did. And I felt like I was like, this is what we have been missing from Ellie's character, a chance to see her actually be and act like a child.
Because she's never been to a birthday party where
No,
they cut the cake.
no. And
So
not
she,
only that, I don't, one of the things that I noticed throughout the episode, and I think one of the things that really made Joel's betrayal hard for her, I don't think she's ever had an adult take that kind of interest in her genuinely because they loved her and they wanted to just make her happy. I think from the moment Marlene got her, I think Marlene kept her at an arm's length because this is a child who may one day save the world. Again, we've had this conversation. If this is a child that's going to save the world, and chances are she can't live in order to do that, I'm not going to let myself get attached to her because why would I do that if I know I'm going to lose her? You
mm-hmm.
know? So I don't think she's ever had that. And so watching the things that Joe did for her birthdays in this episode, the way that he kind of talks to her, the way he treats her, um because it is kind of sort of like a parent but also differently than a parent because
Mm-hmm.
there's no way if I come into my children's room at what was it 17 at the time and find them smoking pot and making out and doing all this other stuff and then they decide oh well I'm going to go move into the garage, there's no way I would have been like okay I think you need your space. No, you're a child. Again, different times because I don't have to worry about the kind of world that they are living in, and Joe no longer has the luxury of raising a child in the world that we live in. But I enjoyed seeing her glee throughout the episode when she saw the things that she loved, when she walked into the space museum for her 16th birthday, just the look of childlike wonder. And I think I mentioned this in the last episode as well. We get on Ellie about okay, you know what, you're really being inappropriate because y'all got other stuff to worry about. But again, we have to take into account she's never seen a lot of this stuff before. It's just like when she saw the airplane in the first season. I feel like we have to give her time to she should be allowed to do that for a little bit. I know it can be impatient for us because we're like, yo, Abby is there. You gotta do this. But I think those moments are important as well because it kind of shapes her character later on and some of the decisions she's gonna make later on. And the same goes for Joel because you have to understand why he's made the decisions he's made. And I
Okay,
think
I
part
can
of
agree
that,
with that, but
mhm,
I don't agree with the it's going to help explain her decisions later. She's supposed to be motivated by revenge, anger, and hate and rage, not this sappy stuff right here.
Well, again, we're talking about the whole generational curse thing. And when we see the end scene that happens, and think about the fact that this is the last conversation that she had with him before he died. And he also talked in a kind of, off topic way about breaking that generational curse. When he talks about what he did for her in Salt Lake City and why he would do it again, because she wanted to look at him like, she was like, you're selfish. And he was like, because I love you in a way that I don't think you understand. He
Yeah.
said, if you ever get a chance to have your own, I hope you'll be better than me. And I think that transition from her childlike behavior and her wonder in the midst of all this stuff, it's supposed to allow us to see that maybe she is trying, because I think she hesitated in the last episode when it came to Nora, because she realized what she was about to do. And then, of course, Nora being defiant, not telling her about Abby, saying the things about Joel about, yeah, the little bitch deserved it and stuff like that. I think that kind of pushed it out the window. But I think it is kind of showing us her teetering between being just like Joel, remember what I taught you, even though that wasn't what he was talking about. I think that's what we're supposed to be thinking about. This is kind of sort of what he taught her, this violence, this way of handling things that he was trying to change. And then you see the things that he did to protect her. And he's like, yeah, I'll do it again. And she's thinking
Well,
about that.
yeah, but the problem is though, she was raised early by Fedra
Mm-hmm.
to be the way she is,
I know.
which is why I think they got along so well. I don't think his violence ever bothered her because it was already instilled in her
Mm-hmm.
when they
Mm-hmm.
met.
Mm-hmm.
That part of him was already in her.
Yeah.
Now, what she could learn from him is what Fedra didn't teach him, which was the compassion part.
Yeah. But also,
And
as a parent, even though this is the world that they're living in, I think as parents, if we can shield our children from that kind of thing, we would.
we
And
would,
if we could give them the opportunity to do better or be better and not be this thing, like, okay, I'll go be the asshole, I'll go be the violent person, I just want you to be a regular child. And I think that's what
yeah,
he was trying to do.
yeah. And the other thing I wanted to say is, as a father, I totally understand
Mm-hmm.
what he did because he literally loves her like a child, like his own child.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, it doesn't matter if sacrificing her would save everyone. That would take away someone he loved.
Mm-hmm.
And if he could spend time with her, he would, especially after losing one daughter,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and he has another one. He's not going to lose her when he can save her,
Right.
you know,
Es-
and have this time with
Especially,
her.
look, especially because losing her, okay, yeah, you save all of these people. Or again, we've had this conversation. You may not save them,
Yeah.
because even though she asked him the question, could they have made a cure? And he answered yes. We don't know for sure that that cure would
Yeah.
have worked,
And that's another
even with
thing
our
that kind of,
modern technology.
that kind of still bothered me too, because I know we're really not supposed to compare it to the game,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm going to compare it to the game. They don't ever definitively say whether or not it would have worked
Mm-hmm.
because of all the stuff that's involved, the mass production, distribution, testing it. Even if they could, like, the odds of it actually being successful are so slim that
Right.
she talked about her life having meaning. Her life, she literally could have sacrificed herself for
For
nothing.
nothing.
For
Yeah.
nothing.
Yeah. But we have to remember too, she's looking at all of this from, one, the mindset of a child, because we see this whole episode takes place between her being 14 and 19. So she's
Hmm.
still a child. She's still looking at things in a childlike way. And I think as she gets older, like especially the 19th birthday stuff, when she's practicing the questions that she's about to ask him, of course she's gotten older, so she's thinking about things probably in a different way. She's probably looking at things that happened in a different light, and that's why she's questioning it. But also, the other thing I think we have to remember, and this is the thing that really hit home for me when they were having the conversation on the porch, again going back to her and the way she was raised, I don't think she's ever had an adult love her in that way, if at all. When Joel told her right then and there that he loved her, that's probably the first time she's ever heard it in her life.
Yeah.
In a very direct way. I'm not talking about relationships she may have had. I'm not talking about the kind of like the off remark that Dina did last week. Oh yeah, and that's why I love you. And she's like, you love me? Okay, yeah, that's cute and stuff for that type of relationship. But we all know it's one thing to know people love us, but for some people, we have to hear it in order for it to kind of stick in our minds. And I think her having him in her life in that way, showing her the things that again make her happy, the dinosaur, the space stuff, like that whole scene was, again, I loved it because I don't think we've ever seen her happy in that sense. Not until then, like pure joy on her face. And also for him, the fact that he made her happy enough that it made him shed a tear. That's something that Joe probably has not felt since Sarah died. That kind of all encompassing love for another person. Yeah, he feels it for Tommy, but Tommy is his brother. Tommy has his own family. It's different. You
Hmm.
know what I'm saying?
Yeah. And also, as a teenager, one of the struggles that most teenagers have starting at 13, 14, 15 is purpose.
Mm-hmm.
Like they start thinking, well, why am I here? What is my purpose?
Mm-hmm.
And her early on, in her mind, she had a concrete purpose. She knew what her purpose was in life.
Mm-hmm.
And for her, Joel took that away.
Yeah. Yeah.
And she spent, a great deal of her teenage years trying to figure out what her purpose is now, which
Mm-hmm.
is what a lot of teenagers go through,
Yeah.
at that time in their lives. So
Yeah.
I could see how it still would be very frustrating to her to
Mm-hmm.
feel like that was taken away from her, even
Yeah.
though she never had the choice anyway,
Right.
because
And that's what I
life
was
didn't
about
give
to
her the
say.
choice.
It's sad that we have to understand that with her because she never had any other choice. No, like I'm sure when Marlene was keeping her isolated from the other kids and not allowing her to do some of the things the other kids did because she was trying to protect her, but protect her for what? She wasn't protecting her because she loved her and because, oh, I just want to make sure she's safe. No, you're protecting her because she has the potential cure in her body. And
Hmm.
that's what makes her important to you. And the fact that that's all she ever knew growing up, to the point where I feel like she was a little bit obsessed maybe with the whole thing with Salt Lake City and her not being able to provide the cure, even if she believed his story about there being other immune people and about the Raiders or whatever. Just the fact that that was such a huge loss to her because that's what she felt like she was worth. I, I think that bothers me because you said it, 13 through 16, 17, they're wondering what their purpose is. And I kind of sort of feel like, how can you make children feel like they have to determine what their whole life is going to be as a teenager when they've never lived life?
Right.
So there's a lot of different emotions that go along with this episode because on the one hand, yeah, I can kind of see what you mean as far as Joel, like, okay, this is not the Joel we're used to. This is a softer Joel. This is a more emotional Joel. This is a more vulnerable Joel. And we don't see him in that way very often. It's very, very rare. I think the last time we saw him that fully vulnerable probably was the first time they were in Jackson, when he knew he had to take Ellie and he didn't think he'd be able to do it. And he talked to Tommy
Hmm.
and he was like, hey, I need you to do this because I don't think I'm going to be able to do this, which ironically is so, it struck me today that if Ellie had just let Joel do what he wanted to do, which was let Tommy take her, she probably would have gotten her wish because Tommy
Yeah.
had no attachment to her. And Joel's choice of words, I thought about it today when he was like, I don't think I'm going to be able to do what she needs me to do. I can't keep her safe if I go with her.
Yeah, because
And you,
he knew she was going to go there to die.
I don't
And
think he really understood that then
I
yet.
think he did deep down, and I think that's why he didn't want to go.
Okay.
Because I think he had a feeling that that would
Okay.
be the last time he saw her.
Okay.
And if he went with her, I think he also knew
He was going to do what he ended up doing
he
anyway.
wasn't going to let them do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So when they confirmed, and he only went, I think, because she really wanted him to go.
Yes. And that's the thing
That
I
was
was
the
going to say.
only
Like,
reason why he went. But when she told him that, yeah, she probably not gonna make it,
mm-hmm.
yeah, y'all are dead now.
Yeah. Because
y'all,
I
y'all are
think
dead now.
going in, he probably was still hoping, like, I think he talked to her about it being like a blood thing, like, oh, they're
Mm-hmm.
probably just going to take some blood. I think he really hoped that that's what it was. But yeah, now that you say that, I think maybe in the back of his mind he did know, like, there's a possibility. But back then it didn't matter to him because she was just cargo. Remember, she was
Mm-hmm.
just cargo. She wasn't.
Well, I think by the time they got to Jackson, she
Oh
was in.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I was thinking about that earlier today. Like, you know what? If Ellie had just let him back out, chicken out, however she wanted to put it, because she called him a coward. But if she had let him do that, then maybe she would have, quote unquote, fulfilled her destiny. She
Mm-hmm.
would have, because Tommy wouldn't have stopped her. Tommy probably would have been like, okay, if this is what it takes to cure this, then maybe okay. Because again, he wasn't that attached to her. But uh, I just think maybe now we're looking at this. I think now we can look at Ellie's story from this point on, and maybe even going back a couple of episodes with a different perspective because of that conversation that she had with him on the porch. Because when we saw it originally, we thought she just walked into the garage and that was it, and that everything that happened the next day, because again, it was literally the next day that all this happened.
Mm-hmm.
And we're just thinking, oh, that was the last conversation she had with him. Oh, she must be feeling guilty and all this other stuff. And it takes on a different meaning for me now because she's angry that she didn't get the time to do whatever needed to be done to forgive him, because she thought that they would have time. He thought
Yeah,
that they would have time.
yeah, but he got what Eugene didn't get. He got her last words,
Yeah.
which was, I will try, I think is
Yeah.
what she said.
She said, I don't think I can ever forgive you for this, but I would like to try.
But I would like to try. And
Mm-hmm.
that's all he needed.
Yeah. Yeah.
So he got his closure, unlike poor Eugene.
So I was not, I don't even know if I realized Joey Panton. I cannot say his
Joey
last.
Pantaleon. Just call him Joey
Joey
Pants.
Pants. Joey Pants. I did not, I don't know if I remember him being cast or being announced as being cast. But when I heard the voice first, because I'm not used to seeing him bald and with the gray beard. I I'm not used to that.
Well, he's a cipher, but older.
Yeah, but see, he was kind of off to the back when we first see him because he's at the tree. So I didn't see I saw his face, but I didn't recognize him. The moment he opened his mouth, I paused the TV. I was like, is that Joey Pants on the screen? Like, what? Amazing actor. Loved him for decades. But I was like, oh, okay, so he is the mysterious Eugene. This is great. And then when he showed the bite, I was like, God damn cameos or
I know people were like suspecting maybe he overheard, them talking about her being immune, or maybe she got bit and whatnot. But no, he actually got bit. But the thing is, we knew that there was a lie involved.
yeah.
Yes, we
Yeah.
knew there was some deception.
And it's interesting because this takes place right around her 19th birthday. Well, actually on her 19th birthday. Her birthdays are so eventful. I'm just like
What a
the
coincidence!
the first two were good. Yeah, I mean, she started out eventful. So like
I
literally
think
being
in I think
born.
in the I think in the game they weren't around her birthday. They were just events that were happening.
Okay.
I think for this episode, Druckmann decided to make them significant on her birthday.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Because I
So,
think some of the things kind of made more impact that way. Especially like the first two birthdays, just kind of them celebrating a birthday the first time. And then the next year, um, the dinosaur, I was kind of shocked when I saw the dinosaur. I was like, why is there a dinosaur in the middle of the forest? And then when you see that the museum is kind of behind it, it's like, oh, okay, that kind of makes more sense. And of course, everything is so overgrown that may not have even been a forest 20 something years ago.
it probably wasn't.
So,
It was a
but
plaza or something like
right. But her, again, the joy on her face when she sees the dinosaur, when she climbs up and she's like, I'm a her going into the science museum, seeing the orrery, and it works because Joel thought to grease it up before he brought her there. Her actually being able to see the space shuttle and try on the the astronaut helmet, that whole scene had me so emotional because it's a scene that you don't think it's going to have that kind of impact. You're like, oh, okay, she's just going to get in the spaceship or whatever. And then you remember that she's kind of obsessed with space. She has been since the first season. So the emotional impact of that is even more important. And the fact that Joel went out, found that, kept it a secret, did what he needed to do to make it great for her, found the tape of the old Apollo 11 launch, so that she could listen to it. And then just that whole thing of us being a part of Ellie's imagination while she imagined going to space. I was just like, okay, I don't know who wrote this episode. Give them an Emmy because wow, the emotional impact in that scene was just great. And you see her happier than we've ever seen her before. And they're walking through the forest, and she stops and she looks at all of a sudden her face changes, her body language changes. And I was just like, what the fuck just happened? And you see fireflies. And I was just like, oh, so this is when it started going downhill because you
mm-hmm.
see a marked difference after that. The next birthday is the 17th birthday. This is when we find her making out with the girl who was the patrol leader. I think her name was Kat.
Yep, cat. Mm-hmm.
Kat. So we see her making out with Kat. Joe comes in, catches them. We see the tattoo equipment because apparently Kat does tattoos, and that's when we learn that Ellie had the moth tattoo over her arm. They have their argument. Joel is like, "Oh, really? All the teenage shit all at once?" I would be pissed too. Like, good grief, you can't give this to me in phases. You got to give me
Yeah,
everything at once.
everything at once. Mm-hmm.
Drugs, sex, and rock and roll. Like, oh. And then when she has that reaction to him when he was like experimenting with girls, and she was like, I wasn't experimenting. It took him a minute for it to click. And then he was like, you don't mean that. I'm gonna come talk to you when you're more yourself. And she's just looking like fuck. And I think that's why Dina's admission in the last episode kind of struck her a little bit more too. because Dina said the same thing. I told my mom I like boys and girls, and she was like, "No, you just like boys." And she's looking like, heard that before.
Yeah. Well, it didn't help that he's from Texas. So,
This is true. And then also with the timeline there, well, in that universe, I should say, everything went to shit way before a lot of the movements that we have
mhm,
here in this world. Like when Ellie and Dina got to Seattle, she didn't know what a pride flag was. She was like, "What is that for?" Like, "Oh, okay. I guess they just had a lot of hope," which technically speaking, yes, they do have hope that they can, live their lives and be treated equally. But she would not know that because that's not the world that they had over there, even before cordyceps.
right,
So it's not surprising that he would still have a little bit of that reaction. But I think even for parents who eventually come around, when you first hear that, I think sometimes the reaction is shock and denial because, again, the way that we grew up, it was that's not right, that's not normal, that's strange, whatever. So even if you're working on changing your mindset about that, I was this way, you know, um, it's still a bit of a shock. And I think that's what he kind of had to deal with. And then he tries to make up for it later on in the episode when he asked her about Dina. And she was like, "Nope, we're going to start this conversation because you are not about to make me like you again. You are an ass." Because he said he was okay with and then she was like, "You lied to me. You looked me dead in the eye and lied with that same face." And I was like, "Oh." And he started, you could tell in his eyes, he was starting to be like, "Oh, okay, we're about to have this conversation." And he's thinking it's about Eugene. And then she was like, "You fucking swore." And he's like, "Oh, shit. We're about to have that conversation." Because he told her with Eugene, "I promise." When she
hmm,
asked him about the fireflies, he said, "I swear." So he's like, "Oh, I guess we're gonna have this conversation now." But um Gail, even before Eugene, she was a bit snippy. But
yes,
I
he was.
guess but I guess if I
She's
was
like,
sitting in a cafe, sitting, having breakfast, reading a book, obviously not wanting to talk to somebody, for somebody to just come sit at the table and start asking me questions, I'd be the same way too. She was like, "Do I look like I have the doctor is in sign, like Lucy from the
yeah, she. I like her,
She's a
and I totally
firecracker."
understand. She is because, yeah, just because I'm a therapist don't mean I'm always working.
Right.
Yeah, it
Right.
doesn't mean that.
Like we have office hours too, even in a global apocalypse, whatever you want to call it. Like don't
Hmm.
don't be disrespectful. But he finds out
The book she was reading was about a guy trying to survive when the virus had wiped out everybody.
oh, was it?
Yeah,
What was the name of the book? Because I
I
honestly I
can't
wasn't paying
remember.
attention.
I can't remember right off the top of my head. But
Okay.
yeah, I looked it up real quick.
Yeah. But but he did get some interesting information from her, which I think kind of helped him deal with Ellie later on. You
Oh
know,
yeah, like he thought the moths were like butterflies that they represent change. He's like, no,
yeah.
death.
Look, I wore my butterfly earrings on purpose. I was like, "Well, I don't have moth earrings, and I don't think I would wear them. So it'd be nice
Yeah,
if
I
I
was like,
just."
did he not watch Silence of the Lambs? Did he not know that moths represent death?
Who knows? Maybe he did, and he just didn't.
No, he didn't.
He wasn't thinking about it.
He was just
He was
thinking his
having
name
he
is a
was dealing
butterfly.
with a parental existential crisis. Like, "Oh my God, I came in the room and my daughter is making out with another girl and she's smoking pot and she got a tattoo and she's only 17." Those are the kind of things he was thinking of. He wasn't thinking that deep.
Yeah, yeah. He misunderstood that. He was thinking that she was changing.
Mm-hmm.
That she wasn't changing. She just figured out what she was.
Mm-hmm.
It's not the same thing.
Right.
Yeah.
It's just that I think that was when he first started looking at it differently because he's like, "Oh, okay, I guess in a way I've been trying to make her into this person or this thing, like I won't say replace his daughter, but just to kind of fill that void for him. And she has her own things going on, and she has her own way that she wants to do things and live her life. And she may not always want to spend, and we know that she may not always want to spend her birthdays with you and only you. And she, branching out a little bit. And I think that was him trying to say, oh, okay, I need to figure out how to do this thing, because again, like he said in what a couple of episodes ago, he didn't get a chance to do this with his daughter.
Hmm.
So he's learning. But you see that in the episode, because when she's trying to move that mattress out, which I was like, come on, Ellie, it's raining outside. Why would you take a mattress out and try to go into that nasty, stanky garage? Like, why? I understand you're mad, but whatever. But when he goes in there to help her, and he was like, look, so we're gonna have this conversation. Well, this is my house. And she was like, this is not your house. This is a house they gave you, or they gave us. You don't own anything. And I think she realized that kind of hit him a little harder than she thought, because then she does apologize to him. She was like, I'm sorry I smoked pot and was making out with a girl and got a tattoo. Or rather, she said, I'm sorry I got a tattoo and smoked pot and was making out with a girl, except I'm not. And I think that's when he was like, okay, you can go stay in the garage. I need some time to process all of this, but at least let me make it nice for you. And then you see them
But
kind of
because he has no heat, he has no
no
anything.
water. He was like, why would you
No.
want to go in there? But he understood her need for space. And then again,
Yeah.
like I said, he has to learn how to do things with her, because one, that isn't his daughter. And two, I think a lot of the stuff that he was doing, even though, yes, he was doing it because he loves her, I think he was also doing it out of a sense of guilt, especially once he found out what the moths mean, because he's like, okay, um, this might be kind of my fault that she's going through this, because she thought she was going to do one thing. And that's all
Hmm.
she's ever thought her whole life. And it's kind of like people who get sick and they think they're dying, and then all of a sudden something happens, or you're on the transplant list, you think you're not going to make it, and then here comes a transplant. You have a new lease on life, and now you have to figure out what to do with this life that you didn't think you were going to be here to experience. And it's hard enough doing it again in the real world with all of our resources and our technologies and our luxuries. She doesn't have any of that in that world. It's just constantly trying to survive. And now you got to figure out, okay, so if I'm not going to save the world, what is my purpose? Like you said, what is my purpose here? What am I doing here? She's got to have time to figure that out. So
Hmm.
he's got to give her a little space, which he did. But then when we see her on her 19th birthday, she's sitting there on the bed in said garage, and she's practicing questions that she has for him.
Yeah, plot holes.
Well, well, yeah, yeah, because
It,
she was
it,
like, okay, so if
his
the
his story has
fireflies,
his story has plot holes.
well, I mean, yeah, because she's like, if the fireflies saw us a mile away from the hospital, how did the whole gang of raiders sneak up on them? I was like, oh, she's gonna hit him with the 1-2. Like, there is no leaning into this. We're going all the way. Okay. She was like, second, if the raiders were killing everyone, including Marlene, and you just barely got me out of the building, like, how did we survive? So, oh yeah. And then the third one was, if there I think she was getting ready to ask if there were other immune people, why haven't we heard about anybody else since then? But he knocked on the door and interrupted her train of thought before she could do that. But I was like, oh, she was really about to get into him.
Hmm.
And then all the stuff happens with Eugene. Eugene gets bit. He convinces, or he tries to convince them, hey, let me just go back home, let me say my goodbyes to Gail, and then we can do what we need to do, but I still have a little time. And when he sends Ellie to go get the horses, she stops because she was like, something about this ain't right. And he's like, I promise. She turned around, she looked at him, she was like, okay. She goes to get the horses. And then, of course, as he and Eugene are walking, I think I'm kind of I'm kind of split because I feel like maybe he thought about it and that would have been the quote unquote soft part of him, like, okay, maybe he does have time, maybe we can let him go. And then I think when they got down there and he started talking, he was like, whoo, the cordyceps makes you cold. I wasn't expecting this. I think he started realizing this was advancing and they might not make it back to Jackson. And then when he
He
came
didn't
back,
want to
he
take
was
that.
like,
He didn't want to take that chance. He didn't want to take that risk.
and it was,
That
I think
that
it was escalated because when he got down there, he was like, which way? And I'm thinking, Joel is thinking, you patrol this area. You should know which way to go.
first of all, they have protocols.
Mm-hmm.
There's a reason for protocols. That's why Jackson is still around.
Right.
That's why this is not something Ellie needed to be dealing with on her first patrol. Joel should just shot him right then and not have negotiated with her and be like, dude, this is a protocol. You know what I'm saying? Like this, because there's going to be a point where she's going to be on patrol with somebody else and that happens. Well, we can get you back in time. No,
Yeah.
no, we don't do it at all.
Yeah. If that
We
had
don't do it at
been,
all.
if that had been Tommy, if that had been Jesse, they probably would have been like, no, this is what we do.
Mm-hmm.
Because like you said, yeah,
If
why
oh,
would you?
if he was with anyone else except for Ellie, Eugene would have been shot on the spot as soon
Yeah,
as they said
that's true
fight.
too. Yeah. But then when he does take Eugene, he takes him to a little clearing where you have view of the lake and view of the mountains. I was like, okay, if this is where you have to die, you can't pick a better view. One.
Mm-hmm.
But also once Eugene realized what Joel had intended to do, that Joel had intended to kill him, when he took his glasses off, he kind of looked and it was only in the eyes. His eyes changed twice. And I was like, are they about to show us him getting taken over by the cordyceps? And that's why Joel had to shoot him? And I was like, after I went back and watched it the second time, I said, no. I said, this was him kind of being angry. Then this was him kind of being sad. And then it was him, okay, I see her. Let's do this.
Yeah, because Joel told him if you truly love someone, you'll see their face. You can see their face.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then Ellie comes. And the look on her face when they were going back, she was so angry. And he was just talking to her. He was like, we'll tell Gail, a little bit. We won't tell her the full thing. We'll just tell her the basics. No
But
need.
before we get there, shout out to Joey Pants because the micro expression in his changes that we noticed, this shows you how great of an actor he is.
Mm-hmm.
This little bit of time that we got Eugene, this is a little bit of time. He gave us so much
Yeah.
in that 3-4 minutes of screen time.
Mm-hmm.
If that,
Yeah.
he gave us a lot.
Yeah.
And like I have him on screen now, you can just see all the little shifts he makes.
That's
Is
why I said I thought he was
really
actually
good.
changing.
Yeah.
Yeah. But when Joel is trying to tell her, yeah, we'll just tell Gail this. We'll keep it simple. We won't give her all the details. She doesn't need to see that. And blah, 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 blah. You could see her face getting more and more angry because she realizes this is how he handled her.
Mm-hmm.
Like this is when it's really clicking to her. Oh yeah, that motherfucker lied to me. He absolutely lied to me. And he went on with his life because he's literally telling me how to do it now. So when they get there to Jackson, and Gail is there and Joel is giving her his spiel. Yeah, he was bit when we found him, blah, blah, blah. He wanted to see you one last time, tell you he loved you. I was like, okay, we can go along with that because none of that was wrong.
Hmm.
It was when he said he did it himself. I said,
Yeah, I don't know why did he say that. Like, why did you do that, bro? I know you don't want to be the one who shot the bullet, but like, if she would have understood that more.
because that's what they do.
That's what they do.
Yeah. And she's a therapist. Like she might have been angry, but I think she would have thought about it later and be like, okay, you know what? That was the logical thing to do. Because he could have turned, even if they said, or even if they tied him up, like Ellie suggested. If he's strong, a lot of times when we see these people who turn into monsters, they're the strongest when they first turn
Hmm.
because they've still got a little blood flow, they still got a little adrenaline. He could have broken out and infected everybody there.
Hmm.
She would have understood that. But the moment he said he did it himself, I just hung my head and I paused my TV. I said, okay, shit's about to hit the fan. I was not expecting Ellie to do what she did and tell Gail and Tommy exactly what happened.
But you remember when they were in the previous episode, Gail said, I understood why you did what you did.
Mm-hmm.
I know it had to be done. But
Mm-hmm.
that still doesn't mean I have to like you.
Yeah, and she said, I just don't like the way you did it.
Yeah.
And that didn't necessarily mean the way that you killed him. It was the way you tried to deflect and lie
Yeah.
about
And say that he did it
it. Mm-hmm.
himself.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. But when she literally lays it out, she was like, oh, he's lying. That's not how it happened. He wanted to come back and see you. He still had time. But Joe shot him in the head. And then when she looked at him and she said, you swore. His face changed because he was like, oh, she's not talking about this. I think that's when he realized, oh,
Hmm.
she understands what I did. Like, damn.
Let's just take a moment and reflect that he was unarmed and he killed 19 fireflies who were armed. Let's just take a moment to appreciate that.
I mean,
Yeah,
we did that last season too. We were like,
It
this is a
wasn't.
one-man army.
It wasn't a group of raiders. That's believable.
Mm-hmm.
One man, for real, for real.
Yeah. Yeah. So again, I understand what you are saying about seeing him in this kind of lessened state, I guess, in a way, just kind of more vulnerable, more compassionate, more I would even go so far as to say more human instead of being this kind of, blocked off machine. Okay, this is what I do, this is how I do it, that sort of thing. I get it. I do understand it. But I like seeing the the back and forth with him as well.
This isn't even the same Joel who was telling Maria that we can't keep taking people in. you know, we just can't do it. This is not the same Joel from even that Joel. That Joel was literally looking at numbers and
Mhm.
saying we can't keep letting people in.
Yeah.
Then what are they gonna do? They just have to stand out there and die. I
But
mean,
that could be part of it too, because if you think about this, that conversation he had with Maria, that took place 9 months after what happened with
mhm.
Eugene and with Ellie finding out. So maybe he took that harder stance because of the way that those two things affected him. Maybe
So
we
he,
would
he
look.
like he went back. He
He
started
went back to
reverting
being
back.
hard ass Joe. Yeah. Like, okay, you know what? She don't want to talk to me. I don't have a reason to show this side to anyone anymore. So let me just be about business as usual. Because she was already living in the garage. It was very obvious from the first episode of this season that things were incredibly strained between them. And then again, what happened at the dance New Year's Eve, and then what happened afterwards, we only saw her walk past the house like, I don't want to talk to you. And that's all we knew that happened up until this episode.
Mhm.
But then we do see a recreation of that scene. He's there on the porch playing the guitar. She She comes, walks past him, and then she walks back on the porch. And he just kind of looks and he puts the guitar down, goes to stand up next to her. They have the conversation about coffee. I was like, yeah, he really did love coffee, didn't he?
Mm-hmm. He did.
But then they start having the conversation one about Seth because this, again, this is right after the whole Seth incident. And then she talks to him and says about, you're a fucking asshole. You lied to me. And you looked me dead in my eye with that same face and you lied. And she was like, look, you're gonna tell me what happened with the fireflies. And if you lie to me, that'll be it for us. That's the end of us. And he looked so scared. And I don't think it was that because he was going to have to tell her. I think he was more scared of what her reaction was going to be because he knew it was going to be volatile, or at least
I
that's what
think
he thought.
I think that it was the fear of losing her
Mhm.
that was looming over him.
Yeah.
Like he can stand her hating him and walking around and giving him the cold shoulder, but I don't think he can take losing her
Like her being completely out of his life.
completely out of his life. Yeah.
Yeah. But she does ask the question. She was like, so about them fireflies. So did Raiders come? And he looked at her for a long time before he answered. Shook his head. No.
Mm-hmm. He didn't say the words. Just shook his head. No.
Shook his head. Then what else did she say? She asked about the Raiders. She asked about um whether or not they were any more immune. And
Mm-hmm.
then she asked him whether or not they would have been able to make a cure. And again, he hesitated before he nodded yes. And I was like, he should have told her maybe. But I think at this point he was like, okay, you know what? There's no mincing words. If she believes that there was a cure, okay, there was a cure. Because at this point, it's not gonna matter either way. He did
Mm-mm.
what he did and lied to her. I think she would have. I think she would have even gotten over it back then if he had not lied to her.
Mm-hmm.
I think that was the biggest betrayal. But then when she says, "So did you?" and she didn't even have to finish the question because he knew she was asking, "Did you kill everyone?" Yes. He nodded his head. And Marlene. Mm-hmm. And then he opens his mouth. Making a cure would have killed you. And she was like, then I was supposed to die. But you took that away from me. You took that away from everyone. And he was like, yeah, I had a choice to do that
I'd do it
again.
again.
He was like, I'd do it again.
Mm-hmm. As a father would say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And she was
I've
like,
had
you're
to make a.
selfish. He was like, because I love you.
Hmm?
And I would have been like, yeah, if that's being selfish, it's being selfish. Again, why should I have to give up my child to save the rest of the world? Like, I understand the ethical choice in that. But again, as a parent, I'm not sacrificing my children for y'all.
No.
Oh, you fuck. No, no.
Emotions always emotions can almost always override rational thought,
Mm-hmm.
especially if you're a parent.
Yeah,
How many parents do stupid stuff because of their child?
yeah,
Going up in the schools and trying to beat up on children, bullying their kids, going on buses, pulling kids off buses because they're bullying their kid. Parents, we are emotional,
yeah.
and sometimes
Don't
it.
make the best decisions.
One time, my child got in the car after dance, and she was upset because the dance teacher he had went off on her about something. I was like, "What did he say?" I was ready to get out that car. She stopped crying. Oh no, it's fine, it's fine. You don't have to go. I was like, "No, what did he say to you again?" I
Yeah,
turned the
let's go
car
fight.
around, went back to the dance studio. I was ready to get out the car. What was
Yeah,
I thinking?
yeah.
You
What
know
what
what I
we
mean?
doing? What we doing? Yeah,
Right. So yeah, he's totally right. I mean, we can debate whether or not he should have done it, but you can't deny the fact that this to him is his child.
mm-hmm.
And he's not going to sit here and let her die,
Yeah,
whether it would save everybody or not.
mm-hmm. And I think again, that's a realization for Ellie. Because yeah, she could have been mad. She could have and he told her, he said, I know I'm gonna lose you behind this, but I would make the same choice.
Mm-hmm.
Because like you said, if she gotta be walking around mad at him, at least she's alive.
Mm-hmm.
And I think he can deal with that better than he could the fact of not ever seeing her again. Especially again,
Mm-hmm.
she didn't have a choice. They didn't even present it to her as, okay, so this is what we have to do to save people. Are you okay with doing this?
Yeah.
They
And
didn't give
from
her the
his,
choice.
and from his perspective, his daughter died in his arms, and he couldn't do anything about it. This one he could do something about, and he
Right.
did.
Yeah.
You know, for some reason, it makes me think of Spider-Man: No Way Home and how Andrew Garfield Spider-Man couldn't save Gwen, but he could
Right.
save MJ.
MJ. Yeah.
You know,
Second chances, man.
second
Second chances.
chances.
You get a chance to do it differently. You get a chance to maybe make a difference.
Mm-hmm.
And again, for a kid who has grown up her whole life being told that, oh, you're humanity's last chance, oh, you can make a cure, or this is your destiny, this is your purpose, and y'all not putting anything else on this child, y'all not giving this child any other kind of love, any other kind of whatever. I think that probably made an impression on her when he was like, yeah, I know it's wrong, maybe, but I'll do it again. I would do it again. No hesitation. Like, this is someone who loves you that much that they are willing to let the world burn just to see you safe.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's why she told him she was willing to try to forgive him, because this for this man to go from, oh, you're cargo, I don't give a fuck about you, to, oh yes, I killed 19 people including a doctor who could cure this thing to make sure that you're alive. She may not understand it. She doesn't have to understand it. But you can't deny how massive that confession is
Mm-hmm.
and what it means. Then to have that taken away from her the next day. Oh.
Mm.
And then, of course, the episode ends with her walking back to the theater. I was like, yeah, she killed her. She killed Nora, and she's coming
Well,
back.
Nora was dead.
I know.
Anyway.
I know. I
Nora was
know.
dead. Anyway.
She was dead, but I think she made it a lot worse.
The Walking Dead.
She ain't walking nowhere. What Ellie did, she's not walking anywhere. She's gonna be sitting in that spot until she's 90.
Mm.
She can't go anywhere. But again, like I said, I love this episode. This was probably one of my favorite episodes, like, ever. Definitely top tier for this particular show. I just I
Yeah,
love
I
it.
could say top tier too, but to be honest with you, I don't really think it's saying a whole lot at this point. I mean, we made it through this whole season and we got to see Revenge Ellie for 5 minutes.
Well, we still have the next episode, so
And then we're gonna go a whole season without seeing her. So
I, I
I
don't
don't.
know how that's gonna go, because, as far as I know, they have not been renewed for season 4. Or wait, or did they? Wait a minute. Wait a minute. I'm trying to remember, because we've covered a lot of shows in the last year that are either in renewal limbo or they're getting renewed like in advance.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't remember if they're going past season 3.
I know they have season 3
Yeah.
now. Yeah, I don't know if they're gonna have the season 4. It would depend on whether or not they have a season 4. Because if they
Yeah.
have a season 4, we're we'll see Ellie bits and pieces,
Yeah.
but we really won't see her until four.
It'll be mostly Abby's story for
Yeah.
season three. Okay. Okay.
Now, if there's no four, we'll get Abby most of the season, and then we'll get a climax of the two of them at the end of the season.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, but I like seeing childish Ellie because I feel like that's something she's never been able to explore. So it's like when she was looking at the dinosaur, when she was in the capsule, the looks on her face, like the goofy look she had on her face when she did the helmet, I thought it was cute. And I'm gonna say this. I am so sick of the dialogue online talking about Bella Ramsey's acting, talking about her looks and how she doesn't look like the video game character. And people are saying such nasty things about this girl. And I'm so fucking sick of it. I'm like, she looks the way she's supposed to look. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Because this is a world that doesn't have all of the stuff that we have. And I feel like a lot of people are saying, people who are on there like, oh, she's not pretty enough or whatever. She's living in a fucking apocalypse. So no, she's not going to be glammed out. She's not going to be maked up out. She's not going to be wearing she's not going to be wearing body shapers and fake eyelashes and plump. And that's what I feel like people are expecting. Like, y'all want her to be glammed up. And no, that's not the point of the story. She's a regular kid who is trying to find her way in this world after her destiny, whatever, has been taken from her. What are y'all expecting her to do? Like, I don't understand. Like, she's playing a kid who is grown up way before she should have. And now, as a 19-year-old, she's going back and experiencing things that most of us experienced in our childhood. And she
Yeah.
has the childlike wonder. And I don't understand the hate that she was
First,
getting on the show.
first, we have to remember that a lot of these people are grifters. That most of them they're only doing the negative things because that's what gets engagement and clicks and
Okay.
gets the money. That's number one. Number two, yeah, it is true that even the game, well, when we have the gamers on, they'll tell you that. I don't know. They may, because I think they actually liked it. But there are a lot of people who played the games who didn't like The Last of Us Part Two
Okay.
because of some of the choices they made.
Okay.
Um, so that is a thing, and even back then, people complained about it, but it was on a smaller scale.
Okay.
But we live in an age now where, after seeing the Acolyte and all the MCU stuff, where negativity drives engagement.
And I'm so sick of that trend. I'm
And there
so
are a
sick of
lot
it.
of people out there that's what they do. That's how they're making their money. They're creating these situations where it's just negative engagement. And that's what
Yeah.
gets them money. That's what gets them views. That's
And
what gets them attention and clicks. And they're like, people have been exposed to they don't even watch the show, and they complain about the show, and they talk about all the stuff that's wrong with the show. They haven't played the game, they don't watch the show, but they get millions of views and clicks because it's negative engagement. And it's sad that we live in a time where,
it
you
is.
know, we could have, we did, I think the most negative thing we did was The Stand. And and that was
Again,
genuinely because we genuinely had problems with it.
but
But
we
we
had
back
problems
it
with
up.
the story. I
Right,
don't
but we didn't make
understand
stuff up. You
people.
know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I don't understand people who are attacking
The
the
personal
real life
attacks. Yeah,
person just
yeah.
because they're not what you had in your mind. Get over it.
No, some
At
of them
this
are doing
point,
it just because it's the thing to do. They probably don't care one way or another because
it
everyone loved her as late as from Game
Liana
of Thrones.
Mormont.
Well, everybody loved her, right?
And she's gotten raves in for some of the other work that she has done.
Yeah.
I,
And I don't even think she's bad. I mean, she's and most of the stuff that's going on with her in the show is not really her acting; it's the directing and some of the writing it's not her. She's doing what she's supposed to do based on how she's being directed.
But also it's
You
the
know?
story. This is a girl who is not supposed to, one, she's not well adjusted and not supposed to
Yeah,
be
she's
acting
not.
well adjusted. She's not well socialized and is not supposed to be acting well
Mm-hmm.
socialized. And we see that when she interacts with certain people, like she's okay with Joel, she's okay with Dina, she's okay with Tommy, but with everybody else, she's very awkward.
Yeah,
That's what her character is
it,
supposed to
it,
be.
but it's the personal attacks, like calling her ugly and saying that she can't act. I think a lot of that stuff bothers me.
It
Like
does.
the best criticism is about the character itself. Is like, oh well, she spent all that time with Joel. You know, he taught her a lot of stuff. You don't think she should know how to triangulate signals after being around Joel, who basically built a radio?
Yeah.
Come on, guys.
Yeah.
Some of the stuff that she can't read a map, you can tell me she didn't spend all this time with this man and he didn't teach her how to read a map. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That's the part that if you're gonna and I went through this with the acolyte. There are things you can legitimately criticize.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to call her ugly because that doesn't
Right.
have anything to do with the show.
No, no. And that's personal preference too, because I think she's a cute kid. I say kid because she's younger than my children. But
Mm.
I mean, she's a cute kid. Like, what are y'all expecting? I just it just it's so tiring. It's like literally I try to ignore all that, but it's so much of it in my feed.
Yeah, and it's
And a
IP,
lot of it is
IP.
coming from
It's
grown men.
grown
I know.
cisgender
I,
white males.
I'm
I'm gonna say
so
it.
sick of it.
I'm gonna say it.
I'm
Yes.
so sick of it. I really am. So I just wanted to say that because it's just I I think she's one of the better young actresses out there. Um and I think she's doing a great job. And I'm just like, I don't understand the hate.
I would even say, you know, because my child is taking AP, she was taking AP language arts,
Mhm.
and she was talking about arguing and debating, and we talked about the different kinds of debates you can have or whatever. And one of the weakest forms is ad hominem, when you attack a person in a debate, when you start attacking them. So to me, it's like that if that is the best you can do as your criticism of the show is talking about Bella Ramsey not being able to act and how ugly she is and how she doesn't look like the character from the show. If that's all you got, then why am I listening to you? Like you don't have any legitimate criticism about
Mhm.
the show, about the writing, about the directing,
Right.
but you want to call her ugly. You can just spend 30 minutes of your 45-minute podcast talking about Bella Ramsey.
Well,
It's just, it's insane. It's
I
crazy.
I saw a comment somewhere that says, this is why everybody doesn't need a mic,
True.
you know? Or this is why everybody doesn't need a blog or I mean, I get it, freedom of speech, that sort of thing, but it's so old. It's so
It is
tired.
old, and we spent all this time. They showed their true colors with the acolyte because you didn't want to
Oh
complain
no,
about
no,
the
no.
movie.
Let's go back a little bit further. Let's talk about Rose on in Star Wars or
Yeah,
Finn
I'm a fan.
or we
You
can go
can't.
back a little bit far. It's just but they've been like unusually cruel with this
Mhm.
one and I'm about sick of it. I'm so sick of it.
Yeah, and it's like the more popular something is, the easier it is for them to do. I mean, even when they switched Splash Mountain to Tiana's whatever it is in Disney World, and they came out of the woodwork to talk about how Disney became a woke. Oh, so you really wanted to hold on to the racist ride? That's what you really wanted. You want everyone to go, and that's let's relate this all to the largest plantation house burning down to the ground.
Burnt to the
Oh
ground.
no, where they gonna have their weddings and receptions? Oh, really? At a place that was literally built by slaves, with a
Mm-hmm.
man who took 200 of his slaves and left his wife at the plantation by herself because he didn't want to fight in the Civil War. He sent his three sons off to die. because he didn't want to. Come on, guys,
Yeah.
come on.
Yeah.
Let's not hold on to this.
Ugliness.
Sometimes, but you know what? Sometimes, like in Sinners, when they
Oh, we just going all over the place today.
talk about
Yes.
Chicago is just they just changed the tall buildings, plantations,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
So we just came back because the devil you know.
Yeah, better the devil you know
But
than the
the
man you
devil you
don't.
know.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
so guess what, guys? Y'all keep showing y'all asses, showing y'all faces, showing us who y'all really are.
Hmm.
So we know who you are. We know
Yeah.
what you believe in. We know whose side you on. So
Hmm.
if this is how you want to make your money, just remember, you lie in bed with dogs, you're gonna get fleas.
Yeah, I love that. But all that to say, there will be no
I'm
Bella
sorry,
Ramsey.
I'm putting my soapbox away.
That's okay. I was gonna say just
Mm-hmm.
all that to say there will be no Bella Ramsey hate on this side. Like we can talk about the story all we want. We can hate the story if we don't like it, but yeah, I'm really getting sick of seeing people just be so negative, and I had to say something about it because it's too much of it out there right now. Even the other stuff with people like, oh, Pedro Pascal, I'm so sick of seeing him and everything. Then get you some quality actors to put in some shit. That's just how I feel
Right.
about it. But anyway, we went off into the weeds. I like I said, I had to mention that because it's really been pissing me off. But going back to the episode, again, one of my favorite episodes. I loved it. I loved seeing the emotional highs and the emotional lows and everything in between. Um, seeing Joel get to be a dad in I guess a little bit more detail because we didn't really get that much time with him and Sarah just being normal because literally when we're introduced to them, it's the morning of
Mm-hmm.
when everything goes to shit. And of course, she ends up dying later on that night because they're trying to escape. So I
Luckily
like
he
seeing
forgot.
him.
Luckily he forgot to pick up a cake because they'd both be dead. Luckily.
Yeah,
Just saying. I'm just throwing it out there.
yeah, that's true. But yeah, I like seeing him be a dad. And I like getting the backstory because again, I was like, I need to know how she found out. I need to know that story because I needed to understand the rift between them. And now I feel like if I go back and rewatch the earlier season 2 episodes, I feel like I might look at them in a different light or look at her in a different light because now I have this last conversation to keep in mind. Because even when she talked to Gail in the hospital and Gail was like, so you guys had a little tiff at the dance. Was that the last time you talked to him? And remember, she was on the hospital bed. She was like, yep. And I was like, oh, okay. So that's why she's feeling that way. No, she's keeping certain things to herself. But
Mm-hmm.
she went and had a whole conversation with him. She found out what he meant when he said he saved her. She knew what that was when Gail asked, but I figured she knew at that point. I just didn't know how she found out. So now I'm glad I know. And now I can kind of keep that in my mind when I see how she's going to be in the next episode because this is the season finale coming up. I'm kind of upset that they only had 7 episodes this season. Like, y'all couldn't do one more, but we're getting the season finale. Um, like I said, in the promo, I didn't see Tommy. I did see some Jesse, did see Dina, so we
Mm-hmm.
will go back to them and we will see some other of the conflicts. At this point, I don't know if I feel like she's going to find anybody else in Abby's group.
You mean
Maybe one,
right now?
yeah, like by the next episode.
I don't know.
I did
I
see
don't
her
know.
and
I don't
Jesse
know.
running in that theater though, so it's like, who got in the theater? Was it the wolves or was it the seraphites or was it the cordyceps?
I don't know. That I heard someone say this is was it Jesse? he was like, "This is a war. We not involved. We don't need to be in the middle of somebody
Yes.
else's war."
He was like, I'm not about to die for this,
Right.
which means he's
I
probably
agree
going to
with him too.
die.
Which means he's gonna die.
I hope
Yes.
not, but yeah.
He's just there to die. That's all he is. Yeah.
Mm, I
Somebody
don't
has to die.
I don't want that to happen. But I mean,
It bothers me because I thought they would try to do like one episode per team member,
mhm. Yeah.
stalking them down, which I think I would have appreciated more. It's sort
Mm,
of in line with the game, but it
okay.
is what it is.
I mean, we may get that in the third season. Like you said, if especially if the third season focuses on Abby, it'll probably focus on her group as well.
Mm.
Just kind of like because I almost feel like with the way that things were from the time that we're introduced to that group, Abby is the one who's mostly angry, which of course we understand because we learned that her father was the doctor that was killed. So we understand her anger. Everybody else is upset, they're angry, but they're not the, oh, we're going to go hunt him down type angry. Abby is
Mm.
the one who's that. And then they're all like, okay, well, we got your back. We'll help you. Again, I don't know if I feel like they thought she would ever find Joel, and especially not so quickly. Like she found him on such a weird luck streak.
It was a lucky. It was just a lucky thing that happened.
Yeah, that she
Yeah.
happened to find him and that she was able to do what she did, but all of them looked uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
And I wonder how that translated after they left and once they got back. Like, usually something like that will really bond people together or to push them apart. And I
Mm-hmm.
have a feeling maybe, I don't know about Nora, but Nora could have distanced herself with Abby, but still been like, I'm still going to protect her because she deserved to have that revenge on Joel. The other girl, I can't remember her name. I don't think
Was it
she would,
Mel?
huh?
Was it Mel?
Maybe, but I don't know if I feel like she would have stayed friends with Abby because that was too much for her. Like she was the
Mm.
one out of the group that was the most visibly uncomfortable and upset with what was going on.
Yeah.
Um, the other two guys, maybe. Like I said, I feel like the tall guy, I cannot remember their names for some reason. The tall guy, I feel like I don't know, he was probably closest to her, so he might still be around. But yeah, I think maybe we'll get all of that in season 3. I just don't see how they would have time to do it tomorrow unless it's very um I don't know. Because especially if Jesse is in the clip talking about the war, we're going to see wolves and seraphites tomorrow.
Mm.
I don't think we're going to see anything else having to do with them.
Owen, Mel, Manny, Nora, Jordan, Leah?
I don't remember.
No.
No,
I
because
don't
it was
think so.
only Owen, Manny, Nora, and Mel.
And
Because it
Mel.
was
Yeah.
5 of them.
Yeah. Yeah. Owen, Mel, Manny, and Nora.
Okay. So Manny is easy to remember because that's Danny Ramirez's character. So Manny
Yeah.
Danny. Okay.
That was a lookout looking in the wrong place. And he missed Ellie and Dora.
I, I mean, Seattle is a big city. It's a big city. There's a lot to keep an eye on.
Hopefully, Abby takes those powers of plot hole spotting and sees the plot holes in her story. I see. Even you know.
I was going to say, what plot holes are you speaking of?
Hmm. The fact that they're walking around in the middle of the street talking out loud.
Oh, okay. That. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, okay. Okay. Being surrounded by 10 stalkers and yeah,
Yeah.
I know Jesse might be a good shot, but he was popping headshots in the dark.
Well, I mean, Ellie shot a couple of them too.
She sure did.
Yeah.
She, under all that stress and pressure, she was
I
able to
mean,
pop
hey,
right in the head. Just saying.
if it comes to stress and pressure or me being eaten to death, I'm gonna be shooting some shit. You hear me? I'm gonna be the best shot there ever was because I'm not gonna miss. Because if I miss, that's death.
I'm gonna tell you. I was about to say, yeah, but if one of them is near me and you 100 feet away and you want to shoot that one in the head with a handgun, please try not to shoot at me.
Yeah, yeah.
But then again, I would rather you try because even if you miss,
I
it's
would
gonna
rather
bite
die by a bullet than
you.
be torn apart by teeth.
Right.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I'm just saying.
Anyway, okay, so we got one episode left. So we'll do that. And then, like we did with the season one end, we will have an additional show with our gamer friends who have played the game, and we'll talk to them about how they like what they did as far as the adaptation, what they felt about the story, what they wish they would have kept out, what they wish they would have put in. We'll have all those discussions with gamer folks. And then how long are we gonna have to wait for season three? Probably 2027. That will be my
Mm,
guess.
mm,
So
we'll see.
I don't know. But you have any final thoughts about this episode? About this great episode?
Shout out to Gail for not hesitating and popping uh Joel upside the head. Like there was no hesitation. Here's
None whatsoever. And she
this
was
is what
so right
happened.
for that.
Pop.
Like, really? You just gonna lie on me like that? Oh, I will say I did like the scene at the dance right after Tommy takes um his son home. And Maria kind of sort of not necessarily apologizes to Joel, but she tells him, she says, I know that comment I made earlier about you being a refugee seems kind of ungrateful. And he was like, no, it's okay. She said, no, I want you to know I am grateful. We all are. And she was talking about the town. She was like, we
Mm-hmm.
all are. You're very important to us, but to me and Tommy especially. What I'm trying to say is Uncle Grumpy is family, which I love that nickname, Uncle Grumpy. But I like, again, the fact that he did have that moment where, because, before you're thinking he died with all of these people having said all this bad stuff to him. And you're thinking, wow, this guy really died unappreciated. And now you find out that it's not the truth. He was able to start making amends with Ellie. He and Maria kind of patched things up. I think the sad part for me too was him and Tommy telling each other, I'll see you next year. I'll see you next year. And from everything that we can gather, they in fact did not see each other the next year because Joe was gone on patrol early in the morning. Tommy
Yeah.
stayed there in the town.
Yeah.
So I was just like, but
And and actually her saying that he was family, it kind of I don't want to say it puts what Seth said at the meeting in perspective, but Seth I think really truly believed that, yeah, we're all family here. And someone came and killed someone in our family
mm-hmm,
and we're not going to do anything about it.
yeah,
So, yeah, it would be nice for Joel to have gotten that from everyone, not just Maria, but I guess it meant a lot coming from her though.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
But
Because she's family, like she's actual family.
she's actual family.
Yeah. So,
But
okay. One episode left, and then starts the wait. So, I do know that we have ATL Comic Convention coming up in July. I did get an
oh,
in.
your panels got approved.
I did see that, so we will be talking about The Last of Us there. Um, but yeah, I think other than that, for right now, that's it for our show. You can find us online at www.phantomhybrid.com. We are on social media, on all the social media at Phantom Hybrid. You can chat with us on our Discord channel. You can watch our videos on our YouTube channel. And you can listen to us on all major podcast streaming platforms. Thanks for listening. We hope you join the conversation next time.